Vulnerability is often misunderstood. In a world that encourages us to be tough, composed, and always in control, vulnerability is frequently seen as a weakness, a crack in the armor. But in truth, vulnerability is one of the most profound expressions of strength. It takes courage to be open, to share our fears, to admit when we're uncertain, and to let others see us for who we really are. Choosing vulnerability in a culture that so often celebrates perfection is not weakness, it is bravery. From a young age, we're taught to keep it together, to smile through pain, to tough it out. Emotions like fear, sadness, or doubt are often brushed aside or hidden because we think they make us appear fragile or incapable. We fear judgment, rejection, or the possibility of being seen as too emotional. And so we build walls. We create curated versions of ourselves that appear polished and unshakable, all while struggling in silence behind the scenes. But these facades, while they may protect us temporarily, also keep us isolated. They block true connection and stunt our emotional growth. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is the act of stepping into discomfort with honesty. It's the willingness to say, I don't know, or I need help, or I made a mistake. It's choosing to speak the truth of our experience, even when it's messy, even when we risk being misunderstood. Vulnerability means showing up as our whole selves, flaws, fears, and all. That kind of honesty requires immense strength because it opens us up to uncertainty, to emotional exposure, and to the possibility of being hurt. But it also opens the door to the most human experiences: love, connection, empathy, and real trust. Think about the people you admire most. Are they perfect? Or are they the ones who have been through struggles, who have opened up about their journeys, who have been honest about their mistakes, and shown you who they really are? Chances are, it's the latter. There's something deeply magnetic about people who are real. They make us feel safe, seen, and less alone. That's the power of vulnerability. It invites authenticity in others. When one person has the courage to be vulnerable, it gives others permission to do the same. It creates a ripple effect that fosters community, compassion, and understanding. Brené Brown, a leading researcher on vulnerability, says that vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. That might seem counterintuitive at first. We tend to associate strength with control and confidence. But true creativity and progress come from taking risks, stepping into the unknown, and being willing to fail. Vulnerability is what fuels that kind of courage. Whether you're an artist sharing a piece of your soul on a canvas, a leader admitting you don't have all the answers, or a friend opening up about a personal struggle, vulnerability is what makes those moments powerful and transformative. In relationships, vulnerability is the foundation of trust. When we're guarded and distant, connection becomes shallow. But when we let others see our true selves, when we share our stories, our dreams, and yes, even our fears, we build deeper bonds. It doesn't mean oversharing or being emotionally reckless. Rather, it means being intentional about showing up with sincerity and honesty. Vulnerability is not about being weak, it's about being real. And that realness is what allows others to connect with us in meaningful ways. Even in professional settings, vulnerability is a strength. Leaders who embrace vulnerability create healthier, more innovative teams. They encourage open dialogue, psychological safety, and a culture where people feel valued, not just for what they produce, but for who they are. When leaders are willing to say, I was wrong, or I don't know, they model accountability and humility. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs of integrity. And teams led by vulnerable, human-centered leaders are more resilient, adaptable, and united. Of course, vulnerability comes with risk. It means putting yourself out there, not knowing how others will respond. There's always the chance of being judged, rejected, or hurt. But the risk of hiding who you are is often even greater. When we suppress our vulnerability, we lose connection, not just with others, but with ourselves. We numb emotion, shut down empathy, and rob ourselves of the very experiences that make life rich and meaningful. To be vulnerable is to live with an open heart. It's to walk through life without pretending, to choose honesty over image, and to embrace the uncertainty that comes with being human. It's one of the hardest things we can do, but also one of the most powerful. It doesn't mean we won't be afraid. It means we choose to show up anyway, despite the fear. So the next time you feel vulnerable, when your voice shakes, when your palms sweat, when you want to speak but hesitate, remember that those moments are not signs of weakness. They're proof that you are showing up with courage. And there is nothing stronger than that. Connection is one of the most fundamental human needs. We crave it, seek it, and often find that it is the source of our greatest joy and fulfillment. Yet, in our fast-pacing, often superficial world, true connection can feel elusive. One of the key ingredients to genuine connection is authenticity. And authenticity, in turn, grows from vulnerability. It is through embracing vulnerability that we allow ourselves to show up in our relationships, both personal and professional, as our true selves, free from masks or pretenses. When we allow ourselves to be seen, we create space for others to do the same. And it is within that space that the deepest forms of connection are born. To many of us, the idea of being authentic in our relationships is challenging. We are conditioned to put on a facade, to be what we think others want or expect us to be. Whether it's at work, in social settings, or even with family and friends, there's often pressure to present a polished, flawless version of ourselves. We hide our insecurities, our fears, and our struggles because we fear judgment or rejection. We are taught, whether explicitly or implicitly, that vulnerability is a weakness, and that in order to succeed, we must appear composed, confident, and unshaken at all times. However, this type of guardedness creates barriers rather than fostering genuine connection. When we present a curated version of ourselves to the world, we are often left feeling disconnected, as though we are performing a role rather than engaging in authentic relationships. We may have dozens of acquaintances, but few true connections. We might be surrounded by people, but feel profoundly alone. That's because true connection requires more than just physical proximity. It requires emotional openness and honesty. It is only when we show up as our true selves, with all our flaws and imperfections, that we invite others to do the same. And it is in this mutual vulnerability that meaningful relationships can blossom. Being vulnerable is not easy. It involves taking risks, letting down our defenses, exposing our true thoughts, feelings, and fears, and trusting others not to hurt us. It means being willing to show parts of ourselves that we often keep hidden, whether it's a moment of uncertainty, a past failure, or a deep, unspoken longing. But vulnerability doesn't mean being emotionally reckless or oversharing. It means having the courage to be honest, to admit when we're struggling, and to ask for help when we need it. It's about being real with ourselves and with others, rather than trying to conform to some idealized image of who we think we should be. When we embrace vulnerability in our relationships, we create a space for authenticity to thrive. Think about the people you feel closest to. Chances are they are the ones who have seen you at your best and at your worst. They're the ones who know your fears, your dreams, and your imperfections, and yet still choose to stay. They don't just love the version of you that's polished and perfect. They love you for all that you are, flaws included. This kind of connection is not built on surface level interactions or small talk. It is built on shared vulnerability and a mutual willingness to be real. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable with others, we give them the opportunity to do the same, which deepens trust and emotional intimacy. The beauty of authentic connection is that it transcends judgment. In a world where we are often quick to judge ourselves and others, true connection thrives in an environment of empathy and understanding. When we are vulnerable, we create space for others to be vulnerable as well. And in those moments, we realize that we are not alone in our struggles or our insecurities. We all face challenges. We all have fears. And we all make mistakes. Vulnerability helps us see that we are not defined by our failures, but by our willingness to grow and learn from them. It's important to recognize that vulnerability is not just about sharing our difficulties or weaknesses. It's also about sharing our joys, our passions, and our hopes for the future. Authenticity is not just about exposing what is difficult or uncomfortable. It's also about sharing what lights us up, what inspires us, and what makes us feel alive. When we allow others to see the parts of ourselves that bring us joy and fulfillment, we invite them to celebrate with us, which further strengthens the bond between us. This openness invites a deeper sense of appreciation and understanding in relationships, whether it's with a romantic partner, a friend, a colleague, or even within a larger community. In professional settings, vulnerability and authenticity are just as important as they are in personal relationships. In the workplace, vulnerability fosters trust, collaboration, and creativity. When leaders and colleagues are willing to be open about their challenges, their uncertainties, and their mistakes, it creates a culture where others feel safe to do the same. This leads to better problem solving, more innovation, and stronger teamwork. When we are authentic in our professional relationships, we stop trying to impress or compete with others and instead focus on collaborating and supporting one another. Vulnerability in the workplace also allows for constructive feedback and personal growth, as individuals feel empowered to learn from their mistakes without the fear of judgment or failure. Moreover, the connections we build through vulnerability are often the most resilient. In times of crisis or hardship, those who have shared their true selves with us are the ones who show up when we need them most. They are the ones who offer empathy and support, who don't shy away from our pain but stand with us through it. Authentic relationships provide a strong foundation during difficult times, as they are based on trust, understanding, and mutual respect. These bonds are not fragile because they are rooted in honesty and realness, not in perfection or idealized images. In the end, vulnerability is not just about sharing our deepest fears and insecurities. It is about showing up as our true selves with all our strengths and weaknesses and allowing others to do the same. It's about choosing connection over isolation, authenticity over facade, and openness over defensiveness. Vulnerability is the key that unlocks the door to real, meaningful relationships. Relationships that are not only built on shared experiences, but also on the shared courage to be seen for who we truly are. And when we embrace vulnerability, we invite others to do the same, creating a world where connection and authenticity can flourish. Vulnerability is often seen as something that makes us weak or exposed, but in reality, it's one of the most powerful catalysts for growth and innovation. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to learning, to taking risks, and to seeing the world in new ways. Rather than being a roadblock to progress, vulnerability is the very thing that enables us to move forward, grow, and innovate, both personally and collectively. It's in the moments when we step outside our comfort zones and embrace uncertainty that we begin to push the boundaries of what we know, learn new things, and uncover fresh ideas. Growth doesn't happen in a vacuum. It occurs when we stretch beyond our current abilities, confront our limitations, and embrace the discomfort that comes with change. Vulnerability is an essential part of this process. It means acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, that we are human, and that we are willing to try new things, even if they might not work out. In moments of vulnerability, we let go of the need to be perfect or in control, and instead allow ourselves to be open to failure and success alike. It's this willingness to step into the unknown that creates the fertile ground for personal and professional growth. In personal development, vulnerability leads us to acknowledge our weaknesses, our fears, and our uncertainties. We cannot grow if we are unwilling to confront the parts of ourselves that need attention or improvement. When we embrace vulnerability, we allow ourselves to see the truth of who we are, rather than hiding behind masks of confidence or self-sufficiency. It is only through this kind of radical honesty with ourselves that we can begin to identify areas where we need to change or develop. Growth doesn't come from staying comfortable. It comes from recognizing where we need to challenge ourselves and taking the first step into the unknown. That first step is always vulnerable, but it is also essential for progress. Moreover, vulnerability encourages us to ask for help and seek feedback. In a culture that often values independence and self-reliance, it can be difficult to admit when we don't have all the answers. However, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we invite others to support us, share their knowledge, and offer different perspectives. This openness fosters a culture of collaboration and learning, where ideas can be exchanged freely and innovation can flourish. Rather than trying to figure everything out on our own, vulnerability allows us to tap into the collective wisdom and experience of those around us. In doing so, we expand our horizons and open ourselves to new ways of thinking, creating, and problem solving. Vulnerability is also a driving force behind innovation. In any field, whether it's technology, the arts, or business, innovation happens when we break away from the status quo and think outside the box. But that kind of thinking requires taking risks. It requires putting forward ideas that may seem unconventional, uncertain, or even unproven. When we put ourselves in a position of vulnerability, we expose our ideas to the possibility of failure, rejection, or criticism. But it's through that very exposure that we refine our ideas, improve our processes, and ultimately find new solutions to old problems. Think about some of the most groundbreaking innovations in history. They were not born from perfect, flawless concepts. They were born from a willingness to fail, learn from mistakes, and iterate on ideas. The light bulb, the telephone, and the airplane all emerged from a place of vulnerability. The inventors who created these revolutionary technologies didn't have all the answers, and they didn't know for sure that their ideas would work, but they took risks. They failed, they adjusted, and they kept moving forward. Innovation thrives in an environment where people are encouraged to fail, learn from their failures, and try again. Vulnerability is what creates this kind of environment because it takes courage to risk failure and the humility to learn from it. In the workplace, vulnerability is essential for fostering a culture of innovation. Leaders who are willing to be vulnerable with their teams, whether by admitting mistakes, sharing their challenges, or asking for help, create an environment where creativity and innovation can thrive. When leaders model vulnerability, they show their teams that it is okay to take risks, make mistakes, and experiment with new ideas. In contrast, a workplace where vulnerability is stifled by fear of failure or judgment leads to stagnation. Without the freedom to experiment and learn, innovation is stifled. Vulnerability opens the door to experimentation, curiosity, and collaboration, all of which are key ingredients for innovation. Moreover, vulnerability fuels resilience. When we are vulnerable, we are also acknowledging the possibility of failure. This acknowledgement allows us to bounce back more quickly from setbacks. We don't see failure as a reflection of our worth or capabilities. Instead, we see it as a valuable learning opportunity. This mindset is crucial for growth and innovation because it encourages persistence. The most successful innovators and leaders are often those who have failed the most, but who have continued to push forward despite those failures. They embrace vulnerability not as a sign of weakness, but as a necessary step in the process of growth and innovation. Additionally, vulnerability allows us to be more empathetic and open-minded, which are key qualities for creative thinking. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, We acknowledge our own imperfections, which makes us more understanding of others' struggles and ideas. This empathy enhances collaboration and allows for the free exchange of ideas. It also creates a space where everyone feels safe to contribute, knowing that their input will be valued no matter how unconventional or unpolished. A culture of vulnerability fosters an atmosphere where creativity is not only encouraged, but celebrated. In conclusion, vulnerability is not a hindrance to growth and innovation. It is the very fuel that drives both. It is through vulnerability that we push beyond our comfort zones, acknowledge our limitations, and open ourselves up to learning and new experiences. Vulnerability allows us to take risks, experiment with new ideas, and accept failure as part of the process of growth. It fosters collaboration, empathy, and resilience, qualities that are essential for innovation. In a world that often emphasizes perfection and control, vulnerability provides the space for creativity to flourish, and for both individuals and organizations to reach their full potential.